Hello and welcome to another episode of Zero BS Estate Agency. Today I'm interviewing Sam Hannon, Director of Hannons Estate Agents, who stresses the crucial role of service quality in maximising the value of someone's property. Now, drawing on her banking background, Sam advocates for transparency, commitment and proactive communication, emphasising the need for a client-centric approach in estate agency. So, Sam, what is the one thing that truly maximises the value of someone's home when they go to sell their property?
I think for us, I think it is the service that you provide, because if you provide that correct service and you give them the right type of valuation when you're servicing that client, and we'll always say it's service through sales, that then maximises, in my opinion, that maximises their valuation, because you could give them a valuation and go, right, I think this is what your house is worth, and it's way over the top, and then it sits there and sits there and sits there and almost goes stalemate, and then you're having to do price adjustments after price adjustments, and that then devalues the house. So for me, I think if you service them correctly right from the start and you tell them exactly, you probably walk away with it, not with that instruction straight away, and they might take 2 or 3 months to come back to you. But I think you'd rather do it that way. And I think that really, so it's not almost a monetary valuation on their house, it's how you service that client. And I think in this industry, that's what requires to happen in order for that client to go, yeah, okay, you're going to sell my house. Because at the end of it, when you sold it and you've done it, they're not going to remember the first conversation you've had with them. It's the fact that you sold the house and they've moved on, done what they need to do. So that's where I think the valuation on the client's house comes into place. Obviously, we market value adds to it, we know what comparables do and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately I think when you service a client through sales, and that's where I think you win that instruction and get that value done and service it through.
So are you saying then, if you're fully aware of service levels, are you saying that service levels, the higher the service, the better the valuation? What I mean by that is I've been in situations where I've really thought, based on all the evidence that I have and a spectacular property, that actually I could achieve quite a bit more. And actually what's ended up happening is that I didn't achieve quite a bit more, which then meant I couldn't actually provide any service because I had no buyers, I had no leads, I had no nothing. And it was just embarrassing. Absolutely, I got it completely wrong and had to apologize, right?
Yeah.
So are we saying that service has a direct correlation with the actual marketing price?
I think it's the honesty that you apply to that marketing price where you can then service it, because you're right 100%. If you've gone and serviced a client and you overvalue it because you think that's what they want to hear, then they will expect that throughout the whole service and throughout the whole sale journey that they have with you. And at the back of that, if you don't get any viewings, it almost goes a bit downhill. Whereas part of that service is not just about servicing that client through when we agree a price on it and we do the sales chasing. It's actually that initial meeting that we have with that vendor, saying to them, look, this is what we think your house is worth, and we can service you on that. And that in itself, if it makes sense, that's where your service starts. And I think most vendors, as long as you're honest with them, and it's a depiction of what's honesty. That's another conversation. But ultimately, it's making sure that, you can service them at that level, and then through the continuity of that sale going through all the way to completion, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're talking about not just winning the instruction, not just getting the property details correct, etc., not just bringing buyers around. Are you talking about milestones as well?
Yes.
So
yes,
this is what we're going to do at this point. This is what we're going to do at this point. When we go under offer, this is then what we're going to do at that point, and that's what we're going to do at that point. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, 100%. Because what that does, it almost puts that vendor in control as well of, it's a working partnership between us and them, and it's giving them that control that they're not having to pick up the phone to us and tell us where we are with every stage, or Sam, can you tell me where we are with this or what's happening? It's about being proactive, keeping them informed, keeping them updated, and keeping them in control of that as well. And that's all part of it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I want to keep that client for the next 20, 30 years. So I know that if I've serviced them correctly on their first house as first time buyers that's bought from us or sold from us, and they're either upsizing or downsizing, they're going to come through to me again the second time round, third time round, and it's having that customer journey from start to finish, which is, I think, which is really important. And I think sometimes we see is when we're going to get the completion monies coming in and what we're going to do with it. And, I've got this, and this, and it tallies up. And yes, you've got to do that as well. But ultimately, I think, it's always been instilled into me that if you service the client properly, and you give good customer service, that sale will fall through, that will come through for you. And you're not chasing all the time. And you're not continuing chasing the money, because that will come if you've done a good enough job, hence the
Yeah.
no sale, no fee kind of policy that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you know what? I love that, because ultimately what you're actually saying is you care more about the outcome for the seller than the outcome for yourself. But within all of that, you have a massive level of confidence that you know what you're doing to be able to provide that
Correct.
service, to be able to provide the right outcome at the right level, which then has all the right service levels in between everything.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Question. Have you always been in agency, or did you come from another industry?
No, I came from I've come from a banking industry. So I worked for a very well-known global bank for 10 and a half years, where what a lot of the stuff that has cross-linked into what I do today has been because of that position that I had and several roles that I had within the banking industry, where it's helped me develop, and it's helped me service my clients and everything
Mm.
else that we do in our day-to-day kind of role, really. So yes, that's what I used to do. So I've not always had it. I've never always had a estate agency. I set it back up in 2014.
Mm.
Prior to that, from 2004 to 2014, I worked for a quite big global bank.
So right, fine. So basically, what you have in effect have done is taken the best parts from banking in terms of maybe service levels, making people feel like it's a concierge, really taking someone on a journey within that field, and then bringing that across into this
Correct.
industry. Um, yeah, but why agency though?
Um, so there's a little story behind it. My mum had her house on the market when I was quite a lot younger, when I was about 18, 19. And it was very difficult for her from a service level of point of view, in terms of the type of buyers that were coming through. They weren't qualified enough. Um, Offers were going forward, and we all know offers have to go forward. Doesn't matter if it's £1 or £1,000,000, we've still got to provide it. And I think once that sale was agreed, didn't hear from the estate agent at all. And at the time, my mum's a single mother, and I thought, do you know what? It's very much of the fact that that service wasn't there, because they agreed the sale and that's it. And she's never sold or bought before. It's the first time she's doing it on her own. And that's what kind of installed into me. And I was like, hold on, this, it shouldn't be like that. Likewise, when I worked for the bank, we had loads of clients coming in, loads of different stories that they've had where houses were being, especially in 2008, when the 2008 crash happened, houses were taken off them, and estate agents were, rubbing their hands together because they could sell them. And a couple of clients that came in, I went home and I was actually very upset as to how they were treated by the estate agent, because they wouldn't take the offer that they gave and pressurised them and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we've set up the estate agents back in 2014, because it's not like that. If you do it the right way, how it was before, it's not how it is now, or it shouldn't be at all. And that's the reason that we set up Hannons Estate Agents.
Which is so. If we then go right, so we're looking at to maximize the value of someone's house, we're talking about service levels. but the only way the service levels are going to be good is if the actual transaction is set up correctly from the beginning.
Yes.
But if we go at a deeper level, how you then have come to that is because of your mum's experience, which you was involved in. You then are protecting people.
Yes. I will always say to a client, whether they're buyers or vendors, especially vendors, I'll always say to them, unless you're going to win the lottery, the house is the most expensive thing you're going to buy and sell. So when you've got that level of money involved, why do some vendors go with cheaper fees? Because cheap doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to get the best service. And why scrimp at estate agents level, but you're happy to pay removals £2,000, or you're happy to pay, you know, whoever it is, a cleaning company to clean up before you leave and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to estate agents, people scrimp, and it's that kind of message to get across, that actually estate agents, the right estate agents, actually are worth the money. You know, they're worth the pound of flesh all day long, because if they know how to do things right, they are there to protect your asset while it's going through to sale and through to completion. And that's what I say to my vendors all the time. I'm there to protect you. You pay my money. You're there to pay me. My job is there to make sure that you get through to completion, and making sure that if there are any red flags, so to speak, coming along the way, we can mitigate that risk at the start, then move forward.
Yeah, no, do you know what? I absolutely love that. And that is such a valid point. Unfortunately, though, it's not necessarily the seller's fault that they are going for a cheap fee. There's a couple of things at play here. The first one is all of us, we don't want something that looks cheap, but we do want a bargain, right?
Yes.
So it's great. Yeah, let's get the bargain. That's what we're going for. If you get a bargain, amazing, right? But we don't want cheap. Cheap is like, oh, that gives us no status at all. The flip side, though, is where a lot of agents, unfortunately, and this is something I think the sellers really have to consider, is if an agent is not able to defend their fee, which is double the amount of the other agents, then they should not be selling your house. And the cheap fee agents should not be selling your house unless they are new to the area and they just going, look, we're doing this 3-month offer where any property we get in the next 3 months, we'll do that for free, whatever, right? But otherwise, the agents do not help themselves, and they don't help the industry by doing cheap fees, because all that happens is sellers go, well, you just confirmed that actually that you're not worth it. You're just a bridge for me to be able to sell my house and put it on Rightmove. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, the sellers then, I'll give you just a very quick example. I had a flat on the market, 350 grand. I thought absolutely 350 all day long. The comparable evidence was there. Absolutely, it's going to work, right? Guess what? It didn't work. And I pride myself on my valuation accuracy rate average, which is 99.47%, right? What I tell sellers and what I achieve. Sometimes it's a hell of a lot more. Sometimes it's a little bit less. But on this particular occasion, it stitched me right up with my stats. I ended up selling it for like 334 grand, 16,000 below what I said I could achieve, right? And it took me 60 days to get the property under offer. And the offers were coming in at about 330, and I managed to get 334. Anyway, about same time, slightly overlapped, I got another flat, same ex-local authority, 1 bed, needed the same amount of work being done to it. And I thought, I need to learn from my mistake. So I said to the lady, little old lady going back to Ireland, look, I want to put your place on for 325.
Yeah.
25 grand below what the other one was on the market for. In 8 days, I actually achieved 340,000, 15 grand above, and £6,000 more than the other flat. Yeah. And so, and that is what I'm, and tell me if I'm wrong, but that is the level of protection and honesty and transparency, I think, that you're saying that you give within those service levels.
Yeah, correct. It's about making sure, that it all goes, it all goes through for that client. And similar things like you've just said, we kind of rack our brains and going, hold on, the evidence is right there. Yet one is selling, one you know, one doesn't, or one takes a little bit longer. And I almost think it's and like you said right at the start, you know, you've got one buyer, you show them the first house, but you're guaranteed, you know, that they're going to buy the second house from you. And it's having that confidence to go, right, okay, you know, houses are like, I always think houses are like Marmite. You either like it or you don't.
Mm.
And you can sell it till your heart's content, and the pricing and everything. But if that client is going, no, I don't like that one, have you got anything else? You know, then you've got that other chance, which is slightly higher in price. So I think it works, you know, it works in both respects, but that service is still there, and that service still continues. You know, it goes through and through. So
At what point do you start working for the buyer?
So when for me, it's when they put us, when they've paid for the searches, that's when I start working for the buyer. So because I want to make sure that they're committed. So anybody can put an offer on the house. Anybody can do that. That's that. You know, I vet them. So before I even do a viewing, I want to see that they've got a mortgage in principle. Now the argument is, well, it's only a mortgage in principle. It doesn't really tell you anything. But what it tells me is that they've sat down in front of someone and they've showed their pay slips. They've gone through their banking. They've gone through their savings. That mortgage broker's had that hour and a half or 40-minute conversation going, yes, we can lend you the money. They can then confidently go out and look at houses and put an offer on. Once that offer then goes in and they start sending me all their paperwork through and proof of deposit and everything like that, and then I know that they've instructed solicitors and they pay their searches, at that point I'm full steam ahead, because I know they've done that. Until then, I tell all my buyers, we continue to do viewings until at such time you can prove to me that you're going to have some kind of commitment on the property. That's how I do it.
So basically, in a nutshell, I don't know what to say other than I totally wholeheartedly agree, completely agree. And that is, and I love that, because when it comes to setting deals up and doing it correctly, it means that, yes, there's a duty of care to buyers, absolutely 1,000,000%. And especially when you're showing buyers property, because like you say, you don't want to waste their time showing them property that's just not relevant or right. But then it's not until they actually, like you say, searches. I love the fact that you said that, because normally for me, it's all about survey. If the survey's been booked in, then I'm like, right, we're going somewhere. But actually, searches is even more important. So
yeah.
in terms of a metric on how serious are they? Because if they're going to the level of going, well, we're paid for the searches, that's double serious. Now they're not just speaking to a broker, they're actually entwined with a solicitor. So yeah. Whereas a lot of agents will, like you said earlier, before we actually start recording, an offer comes in and then it's like, it's called a seller up. Yeah, they've made you an offer. It's really strong. I think you should seriously consider it. Excuse my language, but fuck off. Why are we considering that? If it's not on the right level, we're not considering nothing. I'd rather say to my seller, I'm so sorry, we've got an offer for you, but I'm telling you not to accept it. Would that be fair?
Yeah, correct. I will always go to my vendors, and this goes right back to right at the start where I said my job is to protect my vendor. My vendor pays my fee, and it's to go back to the vendor and go, right, we've got an offer. At that point, I'd go, right, we've got their paperwork. We can see that they've got the affordability. They've got the mortgage in principle. They're happy to go ahead. Would you accept? Yes, I would. Okay, well, the next step is I want to make sure they've paid their searches within 72 hours of the sale memorandum going out. At that point, we are happy with it and we can go, yeah, let's proceed. Because a mortgage offer is a mortgage offer. You know, that they come out, banks do drive-bys and all sorts. So, you know, their commitment is not just with the estate agent, it's with the mortgage broker and it's with the solicitors, and almost to a point it's to the vendor as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the vendor then secure in the sense, right, it's paid for searches. Sometimes we have 30 inquiries come through a search, sometimes we have about 12, you know, and that shows their level of commitment to proceed. And until we get that, and then it's only after a mortgage offer that's come through, we go, right, sole subject to contract, because we know at that point we're going to be discussing exchange and completion dates. And that's another part of the service that I'm talking about. You know, that's the service that I know I keep saying it, but if that's drilled in, and it's done that way, you know that you will be successful in doing things. And that's why we have about 75, 85-star reviews. So
Yeah. Love it. And everything has a milestone. So before property comes to market, there's milestones to get that property on the market. Once the property's on the market, okay, this is what's going to happen next. There's a series of milestones within that. And then when the offers start coming in and your sellers agreed with you that they're going to accept an offer because it's the best buyer, may not necessarily be offering the most money, then you've got a series of other milestones that the buyer has to meet until you start taking them seriously, which is all the time. I love it. I absolutely love it. Oh, mate, music to my ears. This is, yeah. Oh.
And this is why I think, you know, people like we've discussed before, you know, we did this, it's people like Perry Power and, you know, people like that, where they're the type of estate agents where buyers, and a bit like ourselves, where you go, okay, I want you to market my house, not because I want you to put it on the market, get a board outside, but actually, how confident are you that you can get my sale to completion?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm 100% sure that I can get it through to completion on the proviso that we've done these little, I almost call them smart goals, you know, where you set both sides a goal. And I know it sounds a bit petty, but some buyers need the hands holding throughout the whole process. Some haven't sold for 30 years. They don't know how things have changed. And it's about doing that for them because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And allowing that to happen. And I think, but, you know, and it really does, when we do it like this, it really does mitigate buyers that just haven't got anything better to do on a Saturday afternoon, and they go look through Rightmove, Zoopla, or whatever. Oh, look, I fancy looking at that house. Should we just ring the estate agent up to see if we can go view it? Well, have you got the proviso and the affordability? No. Well, then you can't view it, you know. And I have it in all my terms and everything that we'll only do it once you've got an AIP and you are in a proceedable position. I've even had conversations with brokers after the viewing. They want to put an offer through, go, right, your buyer's put an offer, your client's put an offer through. Are they happy? You know, are you happy with everything you've seen? Yeah, I am. Okay, well then let's do it then. So it's, I know it sounds a little bit too much work at the start, but in the long run, it just benefits you rather than a sale falling through halfway through.
Sam of Hannons Estate Agents, you've been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Thanks, John.